Welcome, everyone, and peace be upon you all. My name is Hend Elsantaricy, and I am a mother and a librarian at one of the CT state universities. I am also a member of Muslim Advocacy for Rights, Unity, and Fairness, a grassroots organization in Connecticut that strives to educate and mobilize the Connecticut Muslim communities and their allies to raise awareness on critical issues of human rights and democracy. I want to thank the groups that are sponsoring the event today, the Middle East Crisis Committee, the Middle East Crisis Committee Promoting Enduring Peace, and Maruf CT. Our panel today is called Denouncing Israeli Attacks on Lebanon, Denouncing Israeli Attacks on Palestinians. We have 4 speakers from different perspectives. Each will speak to us for a short time, and I will introduce each of our speakers before they start. Our first speaker tonight is Nadia Milleron. She is a Lebanese American who is a mother, farmer, attorney, successful advocate. Following her daughter's death on Boeing 737 MAX that crashed and killed all on board, Nadia went to Washington and helped lead the unanimous passage of the National Bipartisan Aircraft Certification, Safety, and Accountability Act in 2020. And then went to Boeing's home in Illinois and spearheaded the overthrow of a state law that protected big corporations over victims. She began her career practicing law, helping children who were facing neglect and abuse. She is an independent running for Congress in Massachusetts. Welcome, Nadia.
Thank you so much for having me. Any opportunity to speak out about these issues is really important to take advantage of. And even if we're a small group or various small groups gathering together online or in person, we can still make a difference. And I remember how I really felt walking around Washington, D.C. after the Boeing crash. I felt that it was pointless. Like I felt that my work, the things that I was doing, going into office after office on Capitol Hill, was just a futile exercise. What was I doing? Boeing had over 100 lobbyists, and they had like staff and cars and a lot of money, and we could see them coming out with the representatives from into the hearings from behind in the rooms behind the hearing room where we weren't allowed to go. And so all of these things made me feel so hopeless about it. But I just couldn't see for my own conscience. And, everybody has their own belief system. I'm Christian. I believe in God. I believe that whatever I might be obliged to do, I can't be looking at results. I just have to do it anyway. And what I was trying to do is, and this is analogous to the whole situation that we're facing now with Palestine and Lebanon, what I was trying to do is stop a third crash, because these planes were going to be put back up in the air without correcting them. And so what I was thinking is, I just have to do my best effort. And even if I fail, at least I could say, if there is a third crash, that I did my best effort, contacting the press, contacting these different congressional offices. And you know what was really surprising? We passed the act. We passed it bipartisan. We passed it unanimously. And the families actually had a much bigger impact than Boeing, even though we had no staff. We had no money. We just were committed. We just kept walking to people's offices and saying, we just don't want a third crash. Look at these pilot reports that are happening today. Look at them. See the defective manufacturing that is occurring. See how we have avoided a third crash narrowly by the skills of pilots, not by the equipment being better or safer, but by pilots trying to manage very unmanageable equipment. So This really is so connected to Palestine and now Lebanon in so many ways. My daughter, Samia Rose Dumo, the last message she put on her banner on her Facebook is silence is complicity. And we are all complicit as taxpayers in these slaughters in Palestine, the West Bank, and Gaza, and now in Lebanon. So I just want to talk to you about some real situations. This is not. I'm not a historian. I'm not an expert on any of this. I'm just a citizen trying to be, trying to do my duty, or trying to grapple with my complicity in this, that my tax dollars are funding these terrible atrocities. So, Samia wanted me to go to Palestine and sponsor other like evangelical Christians to go. And so John Fussell, who's on this call, he knows that even though the crash happened March 10th of 2019, I was actually scheduled to go to Palestine on Tuesday, March 12th, and that I had sponsored some evangelical Christians to go on that trip, and they did go. And it's really important, bit by bit, for people to witness, what is actually happening. So when this last spring, Boeing was at a hearing on the Senate side, and Dave Calhoun, who was the CEO of Boeing at the time, was there, and he came up to me, and he had practiced this, and you could tell that he was almost acting, right? So he came up to me and he said, I just want to tell you I'm so sorry for your loss. And this is the time where the cameras click and the film rolls, and he's trying to get a media hit to say Boeing has admitted guilt, and they are saying they're sorry to the victims. And so I took that moment, I took it, and I said, oh, you're sorry for our losses? Are you also sorry for the bombs you created, which have been dropped on tents in Rafah and killed innocent human beings? You could see through the tents. You could see exactly what they're about, and they're not combatants. They're innocent human beings and children. Are you sorry for that too? And you could see his result. He didn't know how to respond, as he just turned away, and the cameras captured that. They captured a person who was claiming to be sorry, who was creating bombs to kill innocent human beings, who was making money off of that. And then, also the month before, there were no purchases of the MAX plane that killed our daughter and 346 people. There were no purchases around the world because the plane is being continued to be produced in a defective manner. And you can see on the news all the time how even the machinist union and the Boeing employees, they don't want to stand for this. They don't want to be part of this anymore. They don't want to have the product shorted. They want to make a good product and be paid fairly to do so, and have sufficient time and effort to be able to do it in a proper way, and not produce bad planes, and not stress themselves as human beings physically in terms of labor. So the one country that bought a lot of planes that month was Israel, even though Israel lost 2 people on the MAX planes. But they bought those planes and they kind of bailed Boeing out that month. So it's like, I scratch your back, you scratch mine, right? It's all connected together. Boeing as a company that produces death in a variety of ways for their own profit and for their own short-term profit, because going down this path is leading to long-term destruction of the company. So then going to this week, all right. So we, what's happened in Lebanon, but I know it from a different angle. My cousin is a surgeon at the AUB hospital, the American University of Beirut hospital, and he was there working, and the pagers were going off and they were exploding. So his pager went off, but he knew at that point not to answer it. And he just spent the whole day in the OR, in the operating room, trying to patch people back together who had been injured by that. The pagers were also going off in and exploding in the American University of Beirut hospital, the American hospital. Did they say that? It did not. Doesn't make any sense at all, right? And there's absolutely no military activity. This is a very well-known hospital. I'm not saying that there's been any military activity in any Palestinian hospitals. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we're getting into an area where it is so clear and documented, and there you can make no argument that this is happening at the AUB hospital. And yet, in order to deal with that, the press simply just doesn't mention the AUB hospital. They just don't mention that that's happening. And then my family is from Zahli, which is a Christian city not so far from Damascus. It's in Lebanon, and it's about a half an hour's drive from Damascus. But it does not have any Hezbollah's presence. Couldn't argue that it does. And then my cousin is taking pictures outside of her apartment, her balcony, of bombs going off, like very, very close to her apartment, like within 200 yards of her apartment. There's bombs going off. And they're looking for airplanes to get out, and they can't find planes to get out. They have, that particular family has a daughter who has a condition where she's severely compromised mentally, and she has a routine, and she goes to school, and she has a whole way of functioning there. In order to get her on a plane, they would have to sedate her. And then if she got to Abu Dhabi or the Emirates, then what? Then what, So they're even like hesitating, not sure, kind of reluctant to leave, not sure how, to disrupt her life. Is it going to stop? Maybe it'll stop. And then, the planes have since stopped. Flights have been suspended, I hope temporarily, but now people are unable to get out. So, and they don't talk about these details at all. So again, I'm not saying that anybody else should be bombed, and there's lots of innocent people in everywhere that have been injured, but this is so starkly against their narrative of having some kind of threat or some kind of problem. And I guess, I can only think that we have to support legislative action. So we have to recognize about money flow and about money supporting Israel, and the fact that they cannot sustain this kind of death march without American funding and American weapons. And so so my son Adnan is in Washington, D.C. He's working for Code Pink. He's also working with Miko Peled, who recently came to the Palestine Museum in New Haven, but working to educate Congress, and principally to educate the young people, the young staff members that are working in Congress. And they actually have a lot of power, because they do all the writing, they do all the legislative work, and they make the recommendations for their boss, the legislators. And so we made great progress educating young people on aviation safety, and he's following that model on Palestine, Lebanon, and other U.S. Aggression in the Middle East. So I don't know. I hope I didn't talk too long, but I think I'll just draw the line there and hope that my personal reflections would help you to feel that it's worth it to keep going, and worth it even when we are a small group, because small groups can make a difference. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nadia, for your talk. It's really helpful, even for me. Like when my group was making phone calls to Congress, CT Congress delegates, and for the past year. And at moments, it feels so useless, as you were saying, and what you just said, just inspiring, and I'm personally gonna tell my group about your experience and hopefully to inspire them to keep going. Thank you. Nadia will be staying with us for the until the Q&A at the end. So if anyone has any comments or want to ask her questions, hold off your questions for now, and we'll we'll take them at the end of the session. Next, we have Basel Alnajjar. He is a Palestinian Syrian American who is a co-founder of We Will Return, an organization fighting for Palestinian liberation through education, activism, and humanitarian aid. He's also is a steering coalition member of the Connecticut Palestine Solidarity Coalition and has done work with SGP, AMP, MCCT, and CARE. Basel.
Thank you so much, Khaled. I really appreciate it. So yeah, my name is Basel Najjar. I'm a Palestinian Syrian American half-half. So I guess both sides of my family are in a relatively deep, intense situation. So being Palestinian, obviously this entire struggle has a deeper meaning to me, especially because I kind of came into the activism world a little late in my life. I kind of started when I was in college, as opposed to a lot of people who grew up in the Palestinian mindset and grow up there the entire life, going to protests, going to activism, speaking at events and stuff like that. So everything that's been happening throughout the past, well, I guess 11 months now, escalated past the past 76 years. It's not something I'm going to really try to describe. I mean, everything that's pretty much evil is conspired into what Israel has been doing to Palestinians. I mean, in the entire anti-colonial struggle, we're talking about like genocide, ethnic cleansing, occupation, restriction of movement, war crimes, everything that you can possibly think of that could be, I mean, grouped into colonialism is going to be something that Israel has done in the past. We're getting new reports that there are over 300,000 Palestinians who have been murdered in the past 11 months. And honestly, that's probably an underestimate with everything that's going on under the rubble that we don't even know about. And I'm so happy that people are finally waking up a little bit more with everything that's been happening in Lebanon the past week or so. We've seen over 500 murdered in the past week in Lebanon, and people are finally waking up a little bit because it kind of dispels everything that the American government has been telling us as to why Israel has the green light to go into Palestine, which is the hostages. And we all know there are no hostages in Lebanon. So when people are finally seeing what's happening in Lebanon, they're kind of looking at the greater Israel plan, which encompasses the entirety of the Middle East, essentially, which is just going to go after one by one if we don't stop it. People are kind of waking up and seeing that this is nothing to do with the hostages. This is actually just a land grab. This is actually just a human rights grab. This is actually just occupation, ethnic cleansing, everything that's been going wrong in the world. So right now in this movement, I think anybody who's really choosing to ignore that is pretty much just opting to ignore it rather than actually being in the face where they don't know what's happening. We've seen everything that's been going on in the news, everything that's been going on in the media, everything that's been going on with our communities, with our events, with our legislature, politicians, everything that has been going on. If you haven't heard about what's happening in Palestine, you are choosing not to hear about what's happening in Palestine. And that obviously comes down to two things. That's going to come down to whether you're complicit, whether you're choosing to ignore it, or you are benefiting from it, which is going to be something that along the lines of financial benefit, power benefit. Obviously, the first person to look at is going to be our politicians with that sort of sense. And with those two, I guess, mantras that we can look at, the complicity or the benefiting mindset, there are going to be two sides to how you can approach things, essentially, with people who are either in the neutral zone or leaning one way. With complicity, it's pretty much at the point where we're going to have to force people to listen to us rather than asking people to listen to us. And that's where these big protests, these big community events, making disruptions really rather than asking people to listen to us is where that comes into. Then when we're talking about with the power mindset or the financial mindset, it's going to be coming down to BDS movements. That's why we put a strong emphasis on that with everything that we do. I mean, it's already taking down multiple companies, it's taking down politicians, it's taking down global entities that have essentially no way to get out of it. I mean, everything that comes down to it is going to be coming down to the mighty dollar. So if you take that away from people, there's nothing left to them. So with those two things, I think over the past 11 months, eventually people are getting tired. People are getting a little tired of it. People are getting I guess, losing energy. They don't have the consistency to go through it. I mean, it's been 11 months, and honestly, the situation is probably worse than how it was in last October, rather than benefiting from everything that we've done. And it's discouraging. You're doing things over and over again. Again, you're going protests, you're just setting up events, you're doing BDS, you're setting up everything that you can possibly do. Me, my sister, so many people in the activism world, a lot of people on this call right now, they've just been putting so much time and effort and energy into it, and you really just see nothing from it. And with that, after 11 months, that's why you need to eventually adopt a leader mindset with this sort of things. And that's where my organization was born. We Will Return is an organization that is working to fight for Palestinian liberation through the three prongs that we feel the most important, the most essential to Palestinian life, which are going to be education, social activism, and then also humanitarian aid. So our organization, We Will Return, actually, let me start with the name first of all. So the name We Will Return is essentially just a declaration of our right to return to our homeland. It's a declaration that no matter what happens in our life, we'll eventually return to our homeland, not only just Palestinians who have been displaced, but then also Palestinians like myself. I mean, right now, I can't even go to my homeland and buy a house. I can't even go, wouldn't have any rights if I go over there. Obviously, my American passport allowed me to get into Palestine, but it wouldn't allow me to actually establish a life over there. So We Will Return is essentially a rallying cry, showing that no matter what, we're going to keep the hope, we're going to keep the spirit, we're going to keep the determination that we will return to our homeland. And the three pillars that we talk about are, like I mentioned before, education, social activism, and humanitarian aid. So education is going to be at the forefront of pretty much every single movement. It's talking about, through our collective efforts, we're going to aim to educate the general public on Palestine, the historical context of everything that's happened in the past 76 years, the occupation, the genocide, the ethnic cleansing, the pushing people out, bringing people in, everything like that. Then also talking about how you connect to the movement. A lot of people, the first thing that they'll say when you talk about Palestine is going to be, why should I care? It's going to be, why should I put any effort into this? There are problems in our own country. And that is the thing that really just annoys me the most, because I think if people actually understood everything that's going on in Palestine, everybody would be pro-Palestine. We're not talking about the people who are going to be benefiting from the occupation, but everybody who doesn't have a stake in what's happening right now would be pro-Palestine if they truly understood what's happening. And that's why education is at the forefront of our movement. I mean, we're talking about when people understand that our tax dollars are going towards murdering hundreds of thousands of innocent people rather than fixing problems in our own country, like homelessness, education, medical aid, medical care, everything like that, people start to open up a little bit. When people understand that everything that's going on within our country and everything that's been going on in the history of our country in terms of colonialism is just an accentuation of what's happening over there, people start opening up a little bit. So, and that's why education is so important. When people actually understand what's going on, I truly feel that everybody would be pro-Palestine. And the second part of our prong is going to be social activism. That comes down to protests, that comes down to community events, that comes down to disruptions. All these are extremely important in the entire, I guess, scope of the movement. It's going to be something that would actually allow people to join in rather than something that's going to be like, I guess, leader-esque, where people can't really contribute to the movement. So people can come to protests, people can join the disruptions, people can join the community events, they get motivation, they get energy, they're allowed to play off other people's emotions, they join a community and everything like that. So these are just really important things that are going to be able to sustain a movement throughout the long term. And then the last prong would be humanitarian aid. So humanitarian aid, when I went to Palestine, I always tell people this story when they first asked me about it. I went to Palestine about 2019, so it was about 5 years ago, for the first and only time actually. And I talked to my family over there that are all living right there in Jerusalem and in Hebron. So they gave me like a firsthand experience into the occupation. And I truly believe that if everybody actually went over to Palestine, they would 100% believe everything that's happening, everything that we're saying. But they gave me a first glimpse into what's happening over there. Being an American passport holder when none of them are, you see the brutalization of everything that's going on over there, the fear tactics, the restriction of everything that's going on. They don't have any rights. They don't have any place to go. They don't have any peace. They even walking down the road, they can be harassed and exterminated at a moment's notice. And living with them, I was able to experience that from the Palestinian side, because obviously when people look at me and they see a bunch of Arabs, they're going to think that I'm also Palestinian nationality. I don't have the ability to flex my American passport and get out of any situation. So when I spoke to my uncle over there, the first thing that he told me with this is that economic, fiscal, policy, social activism, education, all these things are what's going to be able to free Palestine in the long term. It's going to be able to allow us to see a free Palestine in our lifetime. but there has to be a Palestine in order for us to free Palestine. And that's along the lines of humanitarian aid. He said that we would need the financial support, the humanitarian support, the food, medical, water, electricity, all these sorts of little things that are going to be able to allow us to sustain Palestine in order to reach a free Palestine. And that's where humanitarian aid comes into it. It's a crucial, important part of our organization. It's going to be allow people to contribute directly to Palestine. We have a policy within our organization that 100% of all proceeds go towards Palestine. We don't take any cuts. We don't take any management fees. We don't take any salaries or anything like that. So we've been able to, thank God, been able to supply people of Gaza, the people of the West Bank with a lot of essential humanitarian needs in order to sustain them in the long term. And hopefully we'll be able to keep that up for the very long term. We've been able to send a food truck into Gaza. We've been able to send food, a medical convoy, medical supplies like wheelchairs, crutches, essential items essentially. And we've been able to do very well, thank God, with everything that we've been given. So hopefully we'll be able to keep that going. And so through all these things, We Return is essentially we're trying to make it so we don't have to rely on escalations in order for people to actually listen to us. As we've seen throughout the past year, we've seen that people kind of only rise up when something big happens. Actually, not even in the past year. I would say in the past couple of years. People only rise up when something big happens. I know there was a huge escalation in activism and social justice when during the 2021 attacks on Gaza, when they were bombing indiscriminately like they always been doing, but the escalation of bombing, indiscriminate bombing in 2021, or we're talking about the initial October 7th, everything that happened in October 2023 when people started popping up. So we want to make it so we can lead the movement and push people to still be involved despite, excuse me, not despite, regardless of whether there's going to be some big event that's happening that's going to push people out of their houses to actually come to the protests and the events and everything like that. We want to make sure that to show them that there's a significance to this. And the significance is that who is next? We've seen that Israel has pushed onto Lebanon in the past week. We know that they've been bombing Syria as well in the past week. We don't know who's next. It's going to be Iraq, Iran, Turkey. All of these places are susceptible to what's happening over there because they have a colonialist superpower backing them, which is our country, America. So We Return is really just trying to make a difference here. We do everything that we can. If you want to learn more about our organization, wewillreturn.org. We also take donations over there, 501c3 eligible, so it's going to be tax deductible, obviously. And we're just going to keep on fighting. We're going to keep on moving. We're going to do everything that we can to sustain this movement for the longest term until we see a free Palestine within our lifetime. Because we're not going to stop even after even after Palestine is free. We're going to keep on moving. We're going to work to free all oppressed people along the world, free Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Sudan, Kashmir, Congo, every single thing. This list just goes on, and all of these countries, what they have in common is being their contributions, whoever is oppressing them, are coming from our country. And that's what it means. It's our responsibility to actually stand up for these people. So we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep moving, calling our reps, BDS, activism, education, humanitarian, everything that we can do to free Palestine. And I hope that everybody else joins in the movement.
You're muted, Hend.
You're on mute, Khaled.
Thank you.
It muted again.
I'm gonna unmute. All right. Okay. Thank you, Basel. That was very inspiring too. And I hope We Will Return continue to do the amazing work we've seen over the past year. Now we have Jenna Rabah. She is a first-generation Palestinian American, a daughter of 2 refugees from Gaza. She graduated from the University of Connecticut this past May, majoring in analytics and information management. At UConn, she served as the president of Student for Justice in Palestine and helped establish the UConn Divest movement, which organized their encampment this past April. She was among 25 UConn students arrested for taking stand against complicity in genocide. Jenna will talk to us about her experience.
Thank you, Hend, and thank you, Nadia and Basel, for your very touching testimonies and experiences. A little bit about me. I recently graduated from the University of Connecticut. I grew up with two very traditional, like, refugee immigrant parents who really emphasized the importance of like hard work and rule abiding and just being upstanding citizens. And that kind of flew out the window this past year. Standards go out the window when genocide becomes normalized, and that's something I learned going to school last year as a senior. All of my extended family lives in the Gaza Strip. The only family I have here in the United States is my immediate family. This past year, unfortunately, I had to witness the slaughter of my uncle and two cousins by the Israeli regime. My two cousins were walking to check up on their house that they had to flee during the bombardment, and were found walking by the Israeli army and were drone striked right on spot. And my uncle was sleeping in his home when the front facade of his home was completely blown off and he was killed. So naturally, to me, I've grown up with these stories of loss inflicted by Israel on my family for generations. So resistance and resistance to the Israeli regime was a normal part of my experience, and naturally that came through during college. I joined Students for Justice in Palestine as soon as I could, as soon as COVID ended, where Basel was my president at the time. And, you know, we really emphasize the importance of Palestinian culture and like keeping the culture alive because we're always at risk of expulsion. But I think we really pushed activism as well. And over the years, we really became such a strong voice on UConn's campus, being such a almost homogenous campus where there's little minorities. There really wasn't a place for us, but over the years, we really have shown people what Palestine is, who Palestinians are, and how complicit our very own campus is, including the tuition dollars that we pay. So it started off with like newspaper articles, talking to students, cultural events, film screenings, bringing in speakers. But, you know, the second that this attack on Gaza started, we escalated to, you know, directly contacting our president, showing up at Board of Trustees meetings, contacting Board of Trustees members, making powerful skits and videos that went viral on the campus. And it all culminated to the start of the encampment that happened this past April, which was one of the most formative, powerful experiences I've ever undergone. It was a part of UConn Divest, which is an organization comprised of a couple student orgs, including an anti-military group, climate change group, SJP, other social justice movements that really all came together and formed such a powerful community that really stood their ground, even though we were faced with like immense police repression. We had 150 plus state troopers march in and on our first night break the shoulder of a kid on a cane, arrest a TA for protecting that student with a broken shoulder. We had to deal with police surveillance at all times during the night, threats of expulsion. We've had administrators come by. We've had police take pictures of us while we were sleeping. And really, it was a culmination of everything we knew about this country up until this time, with problems with problems in class inequality and police oppression and police surveillance. And yeah, I ended up getting arrested, but I think we started a unstoppable movement of powerful individuals on UConn's campus that are really holding it up to these administrators that are continuing to oppress protest and freedom of speech on campus. They spent this past summer compiling a list of new rules and regulations in order to shut up anybody that has anything to say, whether that's about rape on campus, whether it's about our grad students and state employees not getting paid enough, or whether it's about Palestine. They decided to shut us down. And that comes back to the point that Nadia was talking about, that all of these systems are here to oppress us, and we're all oppressed by the same people and the same corporations. All struggle is interconnected. And that's why being a good student, or being an upstanding citizen, or abiding by these social rules doesn't mean anything when we're constantly at loss and we're constantly losing out because of these institutions. So my role kind of now is to tell students to take those risks, stick it up to those administrators, and just risk it, because what's the point of anything if genocide is normalized? So yeah, that's the experience that I bring to the table. I'm looking forward to the rest of this conversation.
Thank you, Jenna, very much. Last but not least, we have Stanley Heller. He's active with Middle East Crisis Committee, Jewish Voices for Peace, and Promoting Enduring Peace, and he hosts the Struggle Video News. And of course, he's the organizer for today's event. Stanley?
Thank you. So we started the Middle East Crisis Committee in 1982, a number of us, when Lebanon was invaded. And we couldn't believe there would be another major invasion of Lebanon, but the problem wasn't solved. The evil wasn't extirpated. So here we are again. I have some pictures to show you, some slides, a PowerPoint. So I'm going to share the screen and talk. Okay, so this is our announcement for this event. People have asked, who are these kids? Unfortunately, they've all been killed by the Israelis. The top two pictures in Lebanon, the bottom one in Rafah in Gaza. I want to talk about two things: the degeneracy of politics in Israel, and then also ideas about what can be done. So I want to start with this picture. On the left is the 25th of September, 1982. Now, this was maybe a week after the Sabra Shatila massacre in Beirut. And this demonstration's in Israel. 400,000 people turned out. They didn't tell the full story by any means, but people knew something horrible had happened, and people came out in large numbers. There has not been anything like that this year. The number that's come out is in the hundreds. I mean, people against the war, people against killing of people in Gaza or the West Bank. What you see here, all these Israeli flags, bring them home. They want to bring the hostages home. But that doesn't necessarily mean they want the war to end. And so that's quite a contrast from 1982. Here in the upper left-hand corner, you can sort of see a picture of Gaza. This is a picture of settlers who intend to settle Gaza. And up on the top, they had the Hebrew names for the places that were Gaza cities or Gaza refugee camps. On the right is the same sort of thing, the movement for settlement in southern Lebanon. So you see that up in the top. They even have names for some places in Syria they'd like to take over, and maybe also Jordan. It shows you the extremism. And for instance, this is not tiny. There was 2,000 people at that Jerusalem conference, the one that's depicted in the upper left. We're talking about something very important in Israeli politics. It included members of the Israeli ministry. I'm going to show you a little video.
That same night, while Gaza is relentlessly being erased, they took approach with the first families, ready to occupy the land of those who are being killed and starved to death.
מטרה של גרעיני ההתיישבות להתקרב ככל האפשר לעזה, לראות את עזה כולה ולהבין שמעתה והלאה עזה תהיה כולה יהודית. בעזרת השם, עם ישראל ינצח ונזכה לבנות ולראות בשוב השם לציון ובשוב עם ישראל לחבל עזה.
There's more to that, but I mean, these people are outright fascists, just totally disgusting people. Now, on the left, in the upper left, is Mayor Kahana, who was an American citizen, a friend of gangsters, became a rabbi, went over to Israel, and was the most extreme of the extreme, was in favor of all kinds of violence and racism. And in those days, he was actually elected to the Knesset, but when he spoke, almost everyone in the Knesset walked out. But on the bottom right, you have Itamar ben Gvir, one of his disciples, who was so violent and racist, he wasn't allowed into the Israeli army. He was convicted of terrorist charges. But I'm sure you know he's a minister in the Israeli government now. So it shows you an enormous change and degeneration. After the beeper and phone explosions, this woman who, Lee Malach, tweets she needs a beeper because of someone, a member of the Knesset, an Israeli Arab member of the Knesset, complained about what was happening. And this person thought it would be funny to say she needs a beeper. Now, I don't usually quote a member of the CIA or an ex-chief, but you hear Leon Panetta himself, who said these attacks in Lebanon of the beepers was terrorism, putting things into the supply chain. Who knows who was holding them? People were not in a battle or anything. They were in their home. They were in the cars that crashed. They could have been on planes. This is a sad thing. And this is just a couple days ago. A 12-year-old a citizen of Israel, abandoned by her teacher. She said the words, well, the small children are suffering and dying in Gaza. And the other students mobbed up on her, saying, may your village burn. By the way, that's the name of a popular song in Israel. And the teacher did nothing to protect her, and the principal either suspended her or expelled her. And whatever happens, it just gets worse and worse. So I know you've heard about this thing where the dad goes off to get the birth certificates, and when he comes home, his wife, the two new babies, and his mother-in-law are killed. And if you followed it all, the Israelis just shot into this one apartment, into a, I don't know, 5 or 6 story building. One apartment. They never said anything about it. They never said this guy was, Hamas leader or a command center, or all the other nonsense they put out. So that's pretty awful. But then it gets worse. So this man who's a nurse said his whole family was wiped out. He had 4 daughters who were quadruplets, who were 10 years old, and they were killed, and then 2 others. This one, I'm sure not many heard about. So what can be done? Just some ideas here. One big one is the Israeli investments by the state of Connecticut. They take the money that is there in the treasury because there are pensions for teachers, for state employees, for municipal employees. And there's a couple billion. And they have 113 million invested in Israel, in something like 200 different companies, and in Israel bonds, and in Elbit. And if you don't know what that is, that's the biggest arms company in all of Israel. $1 million invested in this company that makes drones that were involved in proven atrocities. And that's something we have to really key on. I was hoping this summer the college students would come home and then go to the Treasury's office and picket there every day or do other things. We can certainly still do that, because this is something, we're asking on the students, we're asking on colleges, disclose. Well, we don't need any disclosure. We know it to the penny, 113 million. Of course, demonstrations are important to let the public know. This is a couple of banners we made showing this picture. This is quite new. Blinken was found out to be a specific liar. I mean, we know he's lying in total, but here he was saying, well, we don't see any evidence that Israel is blocking American shipments. Now, there's evidently a law about that. If they block American shipments, then we have to stop all aid to Israel or something like that. It may be a good idea to have a petition calling for his resignation or firing. Basel mentioned that word disruption, which is so important. This is happened to be a Jewish demonstration in Grand Central Terminal. And it went on for a couple hours, and people were not going to their trains on this level. And that is so important. No business as usual. This is completely horrible time, and we can't allow it to go on. 20,000 missing children. Save the Children is based in Norwalk, I believe, in Connecticut. And we should try to meet up with them, interview them, work with them to highlight this information, get it to the media. One thing that I've done is tried to show Jews that Zionism isn't good for you. And I wrote a book in 19, and I updated it in 2024. I made a slideshow about it. And, from 1904 to 2023, when Netanyahu whitewashed this white nationalist Musk, he's done things that are really hurting American Jews and Jews worldwide. And we need to get people to know about this. Of course, Americans killed by Israel, was it Eishenor Igi, this past few weeks. It had a blip in the media for a while. It was on national media. Now nobody's talking about it. We have to revive that. And the last thing I'll mention, Bernie Sanders has actually filed a resolution. He has a few other senators. And there's going to have to be a discussion about this on whether weapons should be blocked to Israel. Now, I'm under no illusion it's going to pass, but the fact that they'll be forced to discuss it is very important. And so we have to key off that in some way. So I am going to stop at that point. Give it back to
Thank
Hend.
you, Stanley. We're gonna start our Q&A, but before that, I would like to urge those in Danbury area to come tomorrow to a protest at 4 p.m. in the corner of Main and West Street to protest the ongoing attacks on Gaza, West Bank, and Lebanon. We will start in the small green area under the huge American flag. We will have signs, but you can also bring your own banners or signs. We hope to see as many of you as you can. You can now type your questions in the chat, or if you would like to speak directly to any of the speakers or make a comment, just type stack and we'll unmute you so you can you be able to speak to us directly.
I have a question. I don't know if this is exactly relevant to today, but at one point, Mazen Kamsia was very much pushing a one-state solution. Is the two-state solution what is now considered a solution or the solution? Or am I off topic?
I could tackle that. So I think this is actually kind of analogous to the healthcare situation in the United States. So maybe we might want universal healthcare. I want universal healthcare. Other people in my district, voters, they're not sure. They say, oh, maybe it's going to turn out worse, which would be hard, right? But one thing we need in terms of healthcare, I'm just trying to make an analogy, is we have to have enough personnel. We have to have enough doctors. So why don't we just start where we all agree that we have to have enough human beings running the healthcare system so that everyone can get care. We can organize how it goes along the way. In terms of Palestine, every human being on the land should have equal rights. So, start there. And you can't have equal rights if you have a state that prefers one ethnicity or one religion over another. And I've never met a person actually who would say, an American person, who would say, oh, no, I don't agree with people having equal rights. I think some people should have all the rights and then other people shouldn't. So I think it's a really good place to start. And then you can just plot out where it goes from there. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can chime in there as well. I think the best way to look at it is we're essentially in a two-state solution right now. Obviously, Palestine is not recognized by a lot of nations throughout the world, but the essence of the two-state solution is they're going to be part land for Palestinians and part lands for Israelis. And at the end of the day, we know that if it were to eventually be put in place where there would be an official land recognized as Palestine and official land recognized as Israel, Israel would essentially proceed to do the same thing that they've been doing throughout the past 76 years, which is gradually moving over onto the land of the Palestinian people. And we'd end up in the same situation that we're in right now, probably even worse, honestly, because they would have more sanction to move through it, as people would essentially think that the land problem is answered. And then they'd essentially leave everything over there for them to figure things out, when we know that they would take that as a green light essentially to keep on moving in. And as was just mentioned, the one state is the only thing that really work in the long term. I I mean, obviously, ideally, we would be able to return to all of our homes. Our land would be returned. The Palestinians who have been displaced throughout the past 76 years would be able to return to all of the homes they still possess keys to. I'm not sure if that will ever be in a distinct reality, but we still want to hope that they would still be able to return to Palestine, the land named Palestine that has been established for well longer than 76 years. So that's why everybody votes for the one state solution. That's what I believe everybody on this call would be pushing for.
When South Africa overthrew apartheid, no one said, let's put the whites here and the coloreds here and the blacks here. Equal rights for everybody from ocean to ocean there. In this case, from the river to the sea.
What about the Palestinians in Palestine? Would they also go, say, a one-state solution? Do you have a feeling for that?
I believe this is what they're calling for. They want equal rights on their land. They want to be free to move on their land. They want to be reunited with their families who are either refugees outside or refugees inside the occupied lands. This is what they want, to have equal rights.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I unfortunately have to go, but I'll listen to the recording if this discussion goes on. I don't have quite enough clarity, but anyway, I have to go. Thank you.
Justine. I see Justine has her hand raised, so.
I appreciate what Nadia and Basel have said. Nadia, my deepest sympathies to you for the loss of your daughter, for one thing. It's just a horrible thing that your family's experienced. But I think one of the things that is incredibly important for us to push forward is, and this comes into play with the two-state solution, I think that to acknowledge the Nakba as the outcome of a settler colonial movement, and that the idea of two states was really an Israeli with Western support idea to try to keep Israel and Palestine as if they were already two nations, two nationalisms, denying that really what this was colonialism. And so the two-state no solution, which really has died, is just a chimera. It's trying to make people think, oh, this is a good thing, this is balanced, and it's trying to cover up the fact that the real crux of the conflict is the fact that the majority indigenous people of Palestine were kicked out even before Israel was created a state in 47, and the Nakba continues. And so to not have that be at the fore, it is also the way to get recognition, to bring in the fact that there is apartheid as a consequence of that. And this is not a situation of two nationalisms competing for one another, and it never was. And as you all know, that like people like Ilan Pappé have shown with Israeli archives that the plan to do all of these things, including what Stan has just shown us, has been in the works, written down and supported by Zionists from the get-go. So to push forward this, I think, is really important. Finally, I worked as an anthropologist in Lebanon in the 70s and first saw Palestinian refugees there. And what is really sad, I was reminded of this even when I was there, the Israelis were constantly making incursions, and I lived in the Shuf district, and the planes going overhead would constantly interfere with people's lives, constantly. But the one of the biggest villages at the border, Jbail, was just ironically, it's completely destroyed now from Israel incursions over the years. But there was, it was the one place when Palestinians were being expelled, going north into Lebanon. The city welcomed them and took them in, receiving them as refugees. And so now this place that was a place of refuge is itself all completely, evacuated and pretty much destroyed. So obviously this is what I'm saying at the beginning. This is a continuation of that plan from the beginning, which is very sad.
There's Turleaf is asking if anyone in the House of Representatives starting legislation to block the sale of weapons to Israel, parallel with Bernie Sanders. I know that Bernie Sanders is actually joined by Jeff Merkley and Peter Welch in his resolution. So he has. We've been calling on other senators here in Connecticut and everywhere in the country to join them. So hopefully this will work.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add on that is obviously it's a great first step to see that there's some sort of motion with this actually occurring right now. But at the end of the day, this is all performative action that is perpetrated by Bernie Sanders. This is a man who denied a ceasefire until only about a couple months ago. Throughout the entire first 9 months of this genocide, he said they didn't agree with the ceasefire. So he's putting this out after we've been pressuring him for the past 11 months, knowing that it's actually never going to get passed, but it is going to get him out of the doghouse with the pro-Palestinian people who I'm sure are supporting him for his re-election campaign, whatever it may be. So while I'm complete of the mind where we should still support people who eventually come to the side of right, even if it's way later than it should have, we also have to recognize that this is just a move by him, a strategic move. He doesn't actually care about what's happening right now. If he did, he would have spoken up a lot sooner. So great that it's happening, but don't give him too much praise.
It's really important to have people that are not connected to the parties to provide cover and leadership in the House. And so it's really important that we have somebody, I could be one of those somebodies, to speak up, because when my son Adnan is lobbying there, people will say, I will sign on if somebody else starts it. And so they don't have, they're pressured by their party structure and they succumb to that pressure. And I would say that Bernie Sanders is essentially a Democrat, as he just bows to the Democratic mandates. So we really need people who are free and independent and don't have any fear about whether they're reelected or not, and are able to just say and be a leader and provide cover for other people to join.
We have to stick to the issues. We don't get involved in elections. As you mentioned, a 501c3, we are not advocating for Nadia or anyone else. But there was a rally today. Netanyahu spoke at the UN. I have no idea what he said, but I know there was going to be a demonstration. Basel, did you know, you said before we started, you knew a little bit about what happened. Could you report?
Yeah, there was a rally. I believe he was set to speak from about a month ago at Congress, not at Congress, sorry, at the UN. And there was a huge demonstration outside of it. They shut off the roads. There are a lot of people who shut off the bridges as well, all of the entrance into the building for the convoy that was carrying Netanyahu. And the police got very violent with the protesters. They arrested a lot. I know that the actual leader of the movement was hospitalized with an injured or broken wrist, one of the two. So as we've been seeing, the suppression is continuing, especially within the state of New York, where it seems to be the most brutal for protesters.
Mm-hmm.
I see Laura. Yes, go ahead, Laura. Can unmute yourself.
Thanks. So this is just kind of a very broad question or proposal that I want to put out to everyone. I've been thinking lately about the issue of people who are working in the industries that are actually fueling this. And would it be worth approaching the workers in those industries directly to go on strike or even quit their jobs? If the organizations or the companies that they're involved with don't stop. And, in order to do that, obviously, there would have to be some other source of income or some other job available to them, because obviously, even if they don't agree with what their companies are doing, they're going to be afraid to leave their positions. So I kind of feel like, would that be something that maybe the Free Palestine movement might want to start moving towards, is how can we create some sort of cushion for them, that if they leave their jobs, there will be other jobs made available for them, or there will be other sources of being able to sustain themselves, if, let's say, they decide to go on strike or even leave their jobs. That just feels like that's really kind of, to me, very much at the crux of the issue, is as long as people are participating in these entities that are fueling this, then, this is going to continue on. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of put that out there and see your thoughts about that. And also specifically, and I would say, obviously, this would really be for Jewish activists, maybe Jewish Voice for Peace, but specifically also targeting these yeshivas where they're doing recruitment for the Israeli military. And, again, kind of like, what can we provide people who want out of that system? I know that there's a very tiny amount of Israeli activists, very, very small, who are trying to help people getting out of the Israeli military there. But, there's a lot of recruitment going on here as well. So, yeah, I wanted to kind of talk about hitting it on that level.
Go ahead, Stanley.
Well, in terms of workers, I mean, it's very hard to go up to somebody and say, we want you to quit your job as an individual. Doing it as a collective is different. And there was, back in the day, in Detroit, there was a wildcat strike by Arab auto workers, who were a very large percentage of the auto industry. So this is going back to the 1970s. And they shut down things for, I think, a couple of days. This was quite a big deal. But as far as I know, there's been nothing like that since. There are groups. There's one, I think it's called Labor for, Michael Letwin's involved. I can look it up on my phone there. I'll get back to you. I'll put it in the chat. But people who are working, it's very difficult, because not only the boss, you have the labor leaders who are, have for decades been in the pro-apartheid camp, and they don't help their workers much. They're not going to do much for Palestinians. On the other aspect, I never thought about counter recruiting for yeshivas, but we do have to help people who are being harassed in the town of Wilton, which is near here. Evidently, we only know about it secondhand, I think. The report is that somebody didn't want to be on a panel because she allegedly said the leader of the panel was a Zionist. Now, all this is like third hand, but there's a mob online that, went out for blood against her. And I looked up a little bit. The person that she allegedly objected to, and I don't know if she said Zionist or anything else. I mean, she wrote this awful thing about on a Jewish website called Tablet, which basically said everybody in Palestine, everybody in Gaza was a poor victim that's so sad they're a victim of Hamas. And it was, it was about 3 or 4 paragraphs. And she's a writer, she's written 3 or 4 books. I could see now being on a panel with her. But, we're going to have to find out more about that and defend her. I don't know where she works or whatnot, but that's something we have to defend, work on.
Thank you. I think we're coming to almost to the end of our session. We recommend that you visit the Struggle Video News as a project of MECC that has a total of 1 million views on YouTube. They publish videos of interviews with activists. I'm going to post the website on the chat. We're also promoting Enduring Peace, which was begun in 1952, has a Gandhi Award that awarded in 2017 to Omar Barghouti, and along with Ralph Nader, both websites are in the, all right, Stanley already posted them in the chat for you.
And Basel, can you just let everybody know about the demonstration coming up on October 5th?
Yes.
For sure, yes. And actually before that as well, there is a demonstration tomorrow. Actually, I know there's one that's mentioned in Danbury, but there's also one happening at Yale. I believe it's at 5 o'clock at the Yale campus in New Haven. If you want more information, you could look at the Yaleys for Palestine page. And then on Saturday, this coming Saturday, in a couple of days, there is a talk about Islam and activism at the Berlin Mosque at 4 p.m. There's also a banquet this coming Sunday for Muslim Coalition of Connecticut, focusing on social activism in Palestine. Then what John just mentioned, next Saturday, which is going to be October 5th, there's going to be the huge mass rally that we've been planning for a couple of months, focusing on the 1-year anniversary, essentially, of everything that's been going on. So I definitely urge everybody to come out to all of them, especially the mass rally. We need as many people as possible over there to show the congressmen, the politicians, representatives, everybody that we actually do matter. And if you need any information, definitely you can reach out to Stan here, or I'll put the flyers actually as well in the group chat.
Good.
Thank you, Basel. Okay. So any more questions or comments? All right. Okay.
I want to say thank you to everybody for coming, and we need to encourage each other. It is discouraging. Lots of people continue to be severely injured permanently, with loss of their family, loss of their parts of their body, and it's just horrific. But we can continue on and we can prevail. And so I just want to give you all a hug and say thank you for being here. And I'm grateful that I got to be part of the evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia, very much. All right. So I guess if no one has any comments or questions, I thank you everyone for attending today's event. Thank you, the speakers, for sharing your wonderful experiences and inspiring us to move on and continue the effort. And thank you, Stanley.